Hi everyone, welcome to my Mimi World, my breast cancer channel where I share with you my breast cancer journey and some of the healing techniques and strategies that have sustained me to this day. So in today's video, I'm going to be revisiting something that I touched on the very first video when I started sharing my journey. And this is a response to a request as I indicated in my previous video last week. So I'm going to be looking at decluttering, how I started the decluttering process in terms of my possessions and in terms of my relationships. So those are the two things that I'm going to look at. So starting with my possessions, my brain is very structured. Over the years, I've also been learning to understand my brain and how it is wired. And I've realized that some of the things that actually hinder my progress is the fact that when I have clutter around me, I don't operate well. And also it slows down my progress in anything that I'll be working on or anything that I want to endeavor in doing. So that being the case, and analyzing and understanding myself and my brain and how it is wired, that's the reason why I actually felt decluttering was a process that I needed to engage in. And hence I started this process way before my diagnosis of breast cancer. I then intensified it when I was then diagnosed with breast cancer because I needed to make sure that I declutter so that the environment is conducive for my healing. So decluttering was something that I had already started. I continue to do it to this day. I started by just looking at my possessions, things that I own, material things. This varies from household belongings, properties, cars, anything, you name it, that I felt I needed to make sure that I readdress and look at and see, do I need this? Or this is something that I want to have. So I just started by a simple approach of life of just making sure that I put into two categories. And the two categories was wants and needs. Anything that fell into the wants category, I would make sure I put it aside. And anything that fell into the needs is something that I needed. I had things that I was also in the process of owning or in the process of actually buying. And I actually had to look at these things and classify them again into these two categories just to help me get started in the process. Because I'm not a master of all, I had to seek help. And it was upon reading two books, The More of Less and The Minimalist by Joshua Becker, I then had an insight of actually how to help myself with the right tools to make sure that I make this a lifestyle. And when you adopt something to become your lifestyle, it means you are setting your mindset that every time before you engage or before you do something or before you commit to buying or owning anything or any material thing that you want to purchase, your brain will be wired in such a way that it now can distinctly identify a want and a need, and automatically you get the feeling that I don't need to buy this. This is a want. So this is something that I wanted to make sure that I rewired my brain to that extent. Then it becomes something that is natural and it doesn't become like a chore. The main purpose for doing this decluttering process was trying to create a conducive environment around my workplace, around my household, where I spend most of my time. And by doing so, I knew that this would make me reach my full potential in terms of performance because I'll be operating at a very high level with minimal clutter in my brain, with minimal clutter of thinking about all these things. Or even when I'm resting in my house, I don't have so much clutter that I can be constantly worrying over or thinking about. So these were some of the small little baby steps that I engaged to. And upon reading The Minimalist, I learned a lot of strategies from that book. So if you want to read more and understand more about good strategies that you can implement in your life in as far as decluttering your possessions is concerned, check my description box. I'm going to share with you lots of resources that have helped me as well. But before I move on to relationships, I just want to share with you the 5 key benefits that I've benefited from this process. The first one being the mega one, and this one is financial savings. The amount of money that I used to spend buying junk is unbelievable. Every year, accumulation year in, year out. I had junk that surrounded me. I had so much junk that I would keep buying, some of it that I would not even use from the time I've purchased it, and I would just put it on the side. So I had accumulated so much junk, and this process actually helped me to saving my finances for things that can actually sustain my life, for things that I love doing, for things that can help me to become the best version of myself. Things like my health and wellness, my fitness. So those are the things that I now feel they are more important in my life, instead of spending so much money and resources on junk or things that I don't even use, or something that I'll buy and put in the wardrobe, and for the whole year I won't wear it. And moving on as well, on the same token of financial savings, which is the second part, this has helped me to actually set aside a fund for unforeseen events, because being someone who has a family, there are some unforeseen events or predicaments in life that will require your urgent action. The third one, of course, is the space. You know, space is very important in life. We don't realize it, but we all need a healthy, spacious environment. And having a house with less clutter is something that I found priceless during this COVID-19 year, because we were in the house for so long. And I can imagine if the house was packed full of unwanted furniture, full of unwanted things, it was going to make it very difficult for us to interact as a family, because we are all surrounded by clutter. But because we had so much space, it helped us to utilize this space to actually bond, to actually do things together, to play games, to run around the house with the kids, building lasting memories that will last for a lifetime. So this is something that I felt was actually one of the benefits that I derived from decluttering my household. And moving on to the next one is just the cleaning of the house has become so easy now, because there is less things that you need to move around. Energy grows where it goes. So you need to make sure that, where am I growing my energy and where is it going? Am I spending so much time moving things around the house? Am I spending time on myself and having time to myself? So you need to actually prioritize. And this downsizing actually helped me to have that freedom of saying, you know what, we have very little. So when it comes to cleaning, it's something that is not a chore anymore. It's something that we all enjoy to do as a family, because it doesn't take us time. It doesn't eat into our time that we could be using for other things that are more beneficial to our lives. And the last one being me being able to focus more on my health and wellness, because now I have so much time. Before, I used to find my schedule to be so hectic, because there's the juggle of trying to manage the clutter around me, cleaning that clutter, taking care of that clutter. But now, because I've downsized the clutter, I have more time for myself, and I can spend more time creating my videos, reading more to enhance myself, tapping into things that resonate with my soul and spirit. So those are the things that I now enjoy doing, and I have the time now because I have decluttered. And then now I'll take you through to my journey to relationships, how I started to declutter relationships. This is one of the biggest one, because relationships are things that make who we are. We are formed from relationships, and hence it becomes a part of us for the rest of our lives. So relationships are paramount in our lives. And that being the case, I needed to make sure that I wanted to remove all the toxic relationship in my life. That was my aim when I started the process. When I moved on, I was now saying, I need to declutter. I need to get rid of certain relationships in my life. However, because I'm not a fundi in everything, I am actually learning in this journey as well. I had to actually look for tools and techniques to help me again to sustain me in this process of decluttering of relationships. So before I even ventured into that, I had already started to identify the energy that came with certain conversation or with certain people. So that was one of the tools that I used, which is based on intuition. So I used my intuition to guide me and to kind of try and differentiate between those people who bring the best, those people who bring a smile to me every time, and those people who bring the worst out of me all the time. So I had to put those into two categories. So I had two groups of people. But being a human being, it's natural to want to hold on. It's natural to try and fix certain relationships. However, without much knowledge, it's easier for you to fall into the trap of actually trying to sustain a relationship that is draining you, a relationship that's changing you to be the worst version of yourself. And that's something you don't want, because we all want to be the best versions of ourselves. So any relationship that kind of pulls you towards that space of being the worst version of yourself is not worth keeping. And also the ideology or the belief that it's important for us to try all the time to fix relationships. It's up to that individual, or it's up to myself to change myself. I can only change myself, but I cannot change anyone else around me. I can't even change my children's personalities. I can't even change anyone that I love. But what happens is we need to able to devise tools that help us to live together in harmony. That being the motivation to say, you know what? I actually want to define my relationships. However, I am not experienced in this. I need help. So because I have been following key motivational speakers in the world, both from a Christianity background and modern life's point of view, so I had already engaged in these conversations, silently. And it was upon attending one of the webinars by Lisa Nichols, a powerful motivational speaker in the world and an author to many mind-blowing books. I started tapping into conversations and making sure that I help myself in the context of looking at my relationships. She broke it down to me into 3 parts, and this was about abundant thinkers. I want abundance in my life. So going into these 3 types of relationships, I'll just summarize them to you of what each one of them represents. A lifetime relationship is a relationship that takes care of itself. These are relationships like family, friendships. It could be also related to colleagues. So those relationships, they have lots of energy that we exhibit towards them because we need to maintain them on a day-to-day basis. Looking into those relationships helped me to understand that I have a responsibility to make sure that I devise tools to take care of that kind of relationship, like a lifetime relationship. Because this is a lifetime relationship, they're able to fix themselves. With a life-giving relationship, it's only there to rekindle a sense of awakening, or it's only there to actually move you to a place of possibility. It comes in with a high sense of disruption. It can disrupt your life for that period of time. It has high friction and high vibration of energy. So this relationship is intense because it's a life-changing relationship. It's just there to change your life. So as human beings, we fall into the trap of wanting this to last forever. So that being the case, of which most of us fall into, we try to fix this relationship to become a lifetime relationship. We try to change this relationship to suit what we want. We try to fix that person to make sure that they conform to what we want or to our needs. However, that person came into your life to just rekindle that spark that you thought you didn't have. It could be you didn't know that you're a good dancer, and this person takes you out for a dance, for example, and you just realize, you know what? I didn't know I could jam to a song this way. And this is something that I've just realized today because I'm in the right company. Or it could be a sense of love, for example. You're looking for love and somebody comes and rekindles that need. Or it could be a hidden skill in you that you actually for many years you've been suppressing, and you haven't been aware that this is actually something that can elevate you to greater places. And then somebody just comes in and they just rekindle that. So the most important thing when you're dealing with this kind of relationship, it's very hard. For me, I've had a challenge of letting go of certain relationships from right from childhood. Some people that I don't even, but I would feel like, oh, you know what? They helped me at that point in time. I need to keep that relationship, or I helped them at that point in time, and hence we need to keep rekindling that relationship. Not knowing that they served their time and it's time to let go and let them be. It could be a situation where you help someone and they even become better than you in a skill just because you have rekindled that sense in them and they are now more powerful. It's not a good thing for you to keep trying to make that person feel like they are obligated to keep maintaining the relationship with you, or that you are obligated to keep that relationship because you help them. So you have to get to a point where you let go and let them be. So that's a good way of actually understanding a life-changing relationship and having it defined and understanding which kind of people in your life fall into that category. And you then realize that I need to let go and move on with my life. And then moving to the next one, which most people fall into, a purposeful relationship. This comes with a very high sense of vibration. There's more chaos, there's more tears, there's more friction, there's more tension in this relationship. This is a relationship where you get into a relationship for a purpose. It could be a purpose that you want to learn together, you want to grow up together, or you actually want to build a family together. So the purpose, each individual has a different purpose for a different relationship. What causes this relationship to actually have so much chaos is because the purpose, just like the name says, the purpose of the relationship has been fulfilled. So once the purpose has been fulfilled, energy will shift. So your energy shifts to other things because that purpose has been fulfilled. And someone keeps wondering, why has your energy shifted to something else? And yet we have this thing that we said we have to fulfill together. And yet we were on a journey together. So why are you shifting your energy? The reason why the energy is shifting on both parties is because the purpose has been fulfilled. So now it takes the two to sit down and come up with a strategy, either to conclude that purpose and say, you know what, we came into this relationship for this purpose, and I've realized that my energy is aggravating towards other things, and I don't feel the energy for this particular purpose, or I don't feel the energy that I had before when we first met. So this is something that is powerful to actually come to that realization. And as two people sit down, or as three people sit down and say, you know what, hey, our purpose has come to an end. And to avoid friction, to avoid chaos, to avoid negative energy amongst ourselves, we need to redefine a new purpose that we are going to work towards, all of us involved. So this is one of the strategies that I found powerful. Also, on the same note, I had to realize that certain purposes needed to be concluded because that person came into my life to save a purpose, and their time is done. I need to conclude that purpose and say we have finished our purpose of this particular project or something that we've been working together on for a lifetime. Now it's time for us to actually put a closure to this when we agree amicably together. And the reason why I say these strategies helped me, this webinar actually gave me wisdom. Wisdom in the sense that I was able to prioritize. I was able to shift my mindset. I was able to allow my brain to be constantly disrupted, because when you're dealing with relationships, there is lots of disruption that comes into your brain, because these are the things that make us who we are. We are emotional beings. We have a sense of belonging. So I had to allow myself, I had to tell my brain that we are going to be constantly disrupted. But however, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So that kind of helped me to make sure that I looked into my relationships. I identified toxic relationship and I put a closure to them. I had to actually conclude them and say, this is the time. I am not going to allow toxicity into my soul, into my space, into my environment. So this is the time I am saying goodbye to certain people. Just by making a commitment to myself that I was not going to even make an effort to try and change or fix any toxic relationship or any toxic exhibiting people around me. I made a commitment that I will never waste my energy, because energy grows where energy goes. So I wanted to make sure that my energy is going to grow in the right places that I wanted to grow. And just realizing that it's important to just let people be who they want to be. You know, we have no control. It's very easy to fall into a relationship, be it even in a marriage relationship, where you get into a trap of one partner is probably controlling, or one partner feels they have an obligation to take control. And one of the skill set that I have acquired from this process is that in case where you reach a bump or where you reach a roadblock, you know, in a relationship, having understood what each relationship stands for, it helped me to actually think of the right strategy to approach to actually either sustain that relationship, to let go of that relationship, or to maintain that relationship. And the reason why I am doing this decluttering process is because we all know that when we get to that age of vulnerability, when you're sitting on your rocking chair, you don't want to be in a place of regret where you say, I should have said I love you more than I said. Where you say, I should have put healthy boundaries to protect my heart and soul from certain relationships. Or I should have given someone a chance. I should have stepped out of that unhealthy and toxic relationship earlier. I wish I had figured out how to communicate. When we are older and vulnerable, possessions don't mean much to a person. What matters is the relationships. You want to be sitting on that rocking chair and smiling and appreciating the effort and the works you put in place to manage your relationships, because relationships at the end of the day make us who we are. They take a big space of our life. So that being the case, it's important not to live a regretful life when you're vulnerable and there's nothing you can do to change it. So being in this journey has actually helped me to become the best version of myself by making sure that I implement things that are going to sustain me and things that are going to bring peace, joy, and endless happiness. And just something to take away is that when you want to engage into this decluttering process, you need to be aware that there is going to be constant disruption. You also need to be aware that you need to shift your mindset. Your mindset is going to be slowly shifting from those beliefs, from those perceptions, from those habits, bearing in mind that as human beings, 90% of who we are by the age of 35 is a set of memorized habits, hardwired attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions that function as a computer. Our daily routine becomes like a program, and we lose our free will to that program, because it's very easy for us to stay in the comfortable zone. But nothing grows in the comfortable zone. People who grow in life are those people who reach out and go to an unfamiliar zone, because it's the most painful place to be in. It requires you to be in your right mindset. Breaking out of these habits, because these habits, they actually include emotional reactions and unconscious habits. So to break away from those, it requires you to shift your mind set in its entirety, because this entire program has been built on beliefs, the environment that we live in, the culture, the relationships. There is so much that has helped you to become who you are today, or that has made you to be who you are today. So to break away from that is a process that is very painful. And moving into an unfamiliar place is something that most of us struggle doing. It's not by choice, but it's because that we are a running program. It's because of how our brain has been wired over the years. So it becomes very difficult and very hard for us to actually overcome. However, it is possible to take it step by step, identifying those weaknesses, identifying those toxic relationships, and making sure that you don't fall into the cracks with those toxic people. Because once you fall into the cracks with those toxic people, you also become toxic yourself, or you become perceived as toxic. Some people are perceived to be toxic and yet they are not, just because of maintaining toxic relationships around themselves. So it's very important to clean up and be in a place where you feel you are in control, you are in charge of the decisions, the relationships that are around you. You are in charge of your life in its totality. So once you have done all this, and because it's not an easy process like I've indicated, because you are now like a moving computer program, you need to rewire, just like when we have a computer. So to do that, because we are human beings, it's not going to happen overnight. You need to give yourself time. You need to forgive yourself in the process when you make mistakes. You also need to make sure that you give yourself 100 chances of trial and error until you get it right. Because the idea is, when you start, keep moving. So what I would say in conclusion is, put yourself first in any kind of relationship. Define your relationships and put yourself first, and devise tools and strategies of how to sustain those relationships that you have, or those relationships that are sustaining you all your life. So bye for now, and I'll see you in my next video. Don't forget to press the subscribe button if you liked my content.